Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. It might sound excessive to upgrade your iPad just so you can use the new Apple Pencil Pro, but if you're an iPad user with a fair amount of pencil usage, you're in for a very different iPad experience with the Pencil Pro. Considering at the moment it's only compatible with the latest M2 iPad Air as well as the M4 iPad Pro, whatever you're upgrading from, this is gonna be one huge contributor to everything else that makes your upgrade worthwhile. If I had to name one thing on the Pencil Pro that I can't live without now, it will be the combination of haptics and the squeeze gesture. When you squeeze past a certain point, you'll feel a downwards pop, and when you release the pressure, you'll feel it pop back up. It's excellent sensory confirmation that you've performed a squeeze gesture. I describe the strength of the haptic feedback to be rather subtle, but just strong enough to be clearly felt, roughly equivalent to how a standard click on a MacBook's trackpad feels. You do get an option to adjust how much pressure it takes to activate squeeze, but I also noticed the way you squeeze it plays a pretty big role as well. If you try to compress the pencil at a single point with just your fingertips, even at the lowest pressure setting, you'll find yourself squeezing rather hard to activate the gesture. What I find myself to be a lot more comfortable with is simply pushing against the pencil with my thumb. The way I'm applying that force is almost as if I'm trying to bend the pencil as it's resting against my fingers, and I find myself not having to squeeze nearly as hard this way. What gets activated upon squeezing will depend mainly on what application you use it in. By default, it brings up the tool palette in Notes and Freeform, and in Procreate, it calls up a quick menu which works wonders with hover. Just squeeze, hover, and let go to trigger. How well the squeeze action is implemented within a certain app really seems to come down to how the app developers make use of the API. Photoshop on iPad, for example, hasn't gotten around to making use of squeeze yet, so it just does nothing at the moment. I do really hope that more third-party apps begin to adopt this gesture, because in apps like Freeform, which I use very frequently, squeezing to call up the tool palette has really become muscle memory. For me, it's less about being too lazy to reach over and tap on the tool menu, and more about how it doesn't interrupt your flow by summoning your tools right at the tip of your pen. That, along with quick access to actions like undo and redo. And it might not seem obvious at first, but you actually don't need to be within hovering range to use squeeze. You can activate squeeze from any distance as long as the Pencil Pro is connected. This has further implications because you also get to customize what the squeeze gesture does. There are some thoughtful alternatives like calling up the color palette instead of tools, but the real rabbit hole starts at being able to trigger a shortcut with a squeeze. This opens up a world of possibilities, like squeezing to open an app, squeezing to play Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley, or even squeezing to open up a web browser and take you to Squarespace Blueprint. It's an incredibly powerful guided design tool to help you come up with a catchy website design using the help of AI. Unlike choosing from a template, this gives you a completely personalized design, from color schemes to fonts, and it even lets you tailor the tone of the copywriting that's generated. Your website is automatically optimized for every device. It's also got powerful SEO tools built in to help your site show up more often to more people and in exactly the way you want. Of course, you may want to further customize your site down the line, and with Squarespace's next-gen website editor called Fluid Engine, you can intuitively customize every little design detail with drag-and-drop technology for both desktop and mobile. With your Squarespace website, you can sell anything from products to content to time. Payments are flexible and seamless for your customers, letting you accept credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay, or even offer the option to pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay in eligible countries. Head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/zycheng to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. As a footnote, your iPad's display does need to be on in order for squeeze to register. So keep in mind you can't wake your iPad with squeeze, especially if you're planning to trigger a shortcut this way. It's also quite interesting the way you'll be experiencing haptics on the Pencil Pro outside of the confirmation tabs for squeeze. Now, the sensation of haptics is quite difficult to communicate over a YouTube video, so I figured the best way to do this would be to tape a microphone onto the pencil and record the haptic pulses as audio. Note that otherwise during normal use, it is impossible to hear the haptics. When you double tap, you get a haptic on that second tap to let you know that your tool's been changed. Within iPadOS, you'll feel some haptic pops as you long press on icons to bring up their context menu. Long pressing items in the control center does the same thing. And again, there's the app-specific implementations. Procreate is actually the only app I've personally come across which takes advantage of this. If you drag something with the Pencil Pro and it snaps to a guide, you'll feel the haptics as they click into place. If you happen to know of any other apps which makes use of pencil haptics, please let me know in the comments because I'd love to give those a try. For me, the Pencil Pro feels so much more alive with haptics. When I go back to my previous iPad with the Apple Pencil 2, it feels so passive all of a sudden due to the lack of feedback, which felt kind of unfortunate, and it did make me wonder, can I really not use the Pencil Pro with any of the earlier iPads? It's not compatible. The second generation Apple Pencil and Apple Pencil Pro are mutually exclusive. If your iPad is compatible with one of these, it won't be with the other. If I try to use the Apple Pencil Pro on a previous gen iPad Pro, the magnets don't line up, and if you forcefully hold it in place, it's not gonna pair. The different arrangement of magnets is likely due to the camera and Face ID array now crowding up pretty much exactly where your pencil interfaces with the iPad. On the Pencil Pro, there's a bit more space between the two groups of magnets which hold onto your iPad. They've also doubled the number of magnets in each group. This means the Pencil Pro clings much more firmly onto the side of your iPad. This is a difference which can be noticed rather instantly. It takes a bit more force to remove it, and it's also a lot more rigid once it's on there. This has reduced the likelihood of the pencil slipping off the iPad when you don't mean for it to. I'm not saying it's completely eliminated this, but it's certainly reduced the number of times I have to search for my pencil. When I do have to search for my Apple Pencil Pro, there is Find My support on the Apple Pencil Pro, but notably it does not have precision finding. This means you don't get that arrow pointing towards your pencil like you would with an AirTag. You do, however, still get an interface to help you find your Pencil Pro, which essentially lets you know if you're warmer or colder. For me, the helpfulness of this is to the extent of letting you know if you're in the same room as your pencil. Roughly. Once you're within proximity, you're still on your own to figure out where exactly you left your pencil. Again, not exactly AirTag levels of precision, but I guess I'll take this over nothing. One last upgrade exclusive to the Pencil Pro is barrel roll. All previous Apple Pencils had tilt sensitivity, but the Pencil Pro is the first one to be aware of its barrel's rotation. It's seriously cool to see it in action when those simulated tool shadows rotate along with the pencil. I imagine for illustrators, this feature would mean a lot more to you than to me. If I was good at drawing, I probably would have spent a lot less money on cameras. But if you bear with my really unskillful demo, I can draw a straight line down like this with the fountain pen tool, but also rotate my pencil 90 degrees and draw a thin line like so. In Procreate, it's also possible to use barrel roll to control twirl while using Liquify. For me, one of the oddest things about using the Pencil Pro is how it looks identical to the second-gen Apple Pencil, except for the Pro word in its name. It's such a familiar grip that's become so much more. I get that this is just an accessory for the latest iPads, but it's certainly a massive perk of using one.